I'm good. You?
Luke, you want to lead off?
Yeah, sure. Phil, can you kind of go into what y'all liked about Kai Kroger? Obviously, somebody who joined the team late in the process, but it seemed like from the workout on, super impressive guys.
Yeah, look, he's a young player that we're excited about his development. We're excited about what he did since he got here. You know, I think there's a couple things he does well. You know, he has good control of the ball. He has good operation time, and he has really good location. There were a couple times, you know, in the games where he hit a good ball and it wasn't located exactly where we want it, and that's just a little technique thing that we think is very easily fixed. You know, but he's also a very good athlete. He's an excellent holder. You know, he's a former quarterback, so there's some things that he does that we really like.
I don't get to ask a question like this very often, so I'm going to take my chance here. What makes an excellent holder?
Really good hands, and then the ability to get the ball exactly on the spot where the kicker wants it while getting your backhand out of the way fast so that the kicker has plenty of time to see the ball.
For your returner options, it seems like I guess with Rashid Shaheed, is he now past the point where you ideally don't want to use him as your primary punt returner just because of the injuries and stuff? Or?
No, I would not say that. And, I think there's an injury factor to every player. I think he's the best in the league at what he does. He's been an all-pro. Anytime he touches the ball, he can score. And, you know, the more points we score, the better chance we have of winning.
When it comes to roster cuts, we typically look at offense, defense, and then special teams being three spots: kicker, punter, long snapper. Obviously, it's much more than that. What is your role and your involvement? Like, how do you advocate for your special teams guys on the roster in those conversations?
Yeah, listen, I think that's a great question. I think I'm going to start by saying this. Today sucks, just so that we're on the same page. You know, these are young men that, especially for me, from a special team standpoint, that I've had the chance to interact with them every day in meetings. And they've come out there and they've worked extremely hard and done everything that we've asked them to do and gave it their all. And unfortunately, the business side comes in, and not everybody gets to make it, you know, and that's a hard day. It's a really hard day when you're sitting in your office and you have grown men that come into your office with tears in their eyes thanking you for what you've, you know, the opportunity that you've given them. And, you know, I have children of my own, you know, there's a business part, but it breaks my heart too. You know, some of these guys I really care about on a personal level other than the football, and, you know, that's the difficult part of today. It's not glamorous in any way, you know, and I think that sometimes that gets lost. You know, it's just a transaction that goes on the internet or goes on the paper or something like that, and it's really not. It's someone's livelihood. You know, they have parents and they have, you know, some of them have children and brothers and sisters and loved ones, and so it's a difficult day. But there is a part of the special teams that comes into it in the roster decision. You know, we're trying to accumulate the best team for the New Orleans Saints, and you know, there's a lot of factors that go into that: the positions they play, how talented they are, their character, what versatility they bring in being able to play different roles. And I think, you know, as an organization, we have a vision of what we want to be, and we try to say, what is our vision for the player and how does he help us win? And, you know, so that part of it comes into, you know, decisions that are made. It's easy on when you know who the starter X, Y, or Z is going to be, but it's, you know, when you get down to some of these other positions and how many are coming on game day of the 48 players, right? What role do they play? What's the total amount of plays in the game that they're going to play to help us win on Sundays? So we try to piece all that together and have a plan, and, you know, so that part comes into it, and that kind of sums it up for me.
How many roster spots do you think are given because of what they can do on special teams? Like, often the guy's backup, he needs to be able to play on special teams, right, to get a roster spot. How many of those guys do you think there are?
Look, generally, if they're not the starter at their position, then I think take out the O-line and the D-line, right? I think then the special teams value comes into play on are they on your 53-man roster and are they active on game day? You know, when you only have 48 guys on game day, it's not a lot of players to field special teams units with, and other than the specialists, you know, you need, like on kickoff team, we need 10 guys to go cover that kick other than the kicker, you know, so all that comes into play.
Do make different decisions, offensive line, defensive line wise, based on maybe field goal and field goal block, those units?
Not necessarily. No, I wouldn't say that comes into play.
With Kai, do you feel like he locked down the starting punter job, or if someone hits waivers, you guys keep that open? Like, where does he kind of stand?
Look, with Kai, I'm really excited about developing him. I think he's a young, talented player that we're excited about. Whether it's the punter or whether it's whatever position when waivers come around, we're always trying to upgrade our roster and our team. That's our job, and that's the business aspect of it. We're trying to put the best players that make up the New Orleans Saints, and so when the waiver wire comes out, that could be at any position.
And how about what makes Isaiah Stalbert pop on special teams?
Yeah, look, I think his athletic ability shows up in a hurry, right? I mean, he's fast and he's explosive, and he has the ability to find the football. And so those are the splash plays you've seen in the coverage aspect. But then when you take a look, even in the return aspect, and KOR and on punt return, he's done a really, really good job of blocking and making sure his guy isn't involved near the tackle. And, we're really excited about Isaiah. I think he has a really bright future for us.
Rico Payton was a guy that kind of stepped into that gunner role opposite JT Gray. As of this moment, it's been reported that he's been moved on from. What's kind of the plan opposite JT Gray and Gunner now? How do you feel about the talent and options you have there?
Yeah, I know that we have some talented guys in that room. I like some of the young guys we've had. I like some of the new additions. And I think, as you guys saw throughout practice and the preseason games, there's a lot of guys that go play those spots. And I know what JT Gray can do. JT Gray doesn't need to go play gunner in the preseason for us, but we need to figure out who those other guys are. And I think we're excited about it. Look, I'm really excited from a special team standpoint. I think we got younger and faster. So there's some inexperience with some of the guys that are younger, but I'm really excited about what I think that we can be with our athleticism and the matchup problems we're going to create for teams. So I'm excited about that, and I think we have several options that can go play gunner for us. And I don't want to say who that is and give anything away to Arizona, but I feel confident we can go get that done.
What led to Blake Grupe having such a consistent camp?
I don't have an exact answer of what led to it. Since he's got here, he's had really good training camps. I mean, that's why he's here to begin with. When we made that decision a couple years ago, he had a great training camp, and he comes to work every day, and he's exactly what you're looking for when at least what I'm looking for when I talk about specialists. He is a guy that is able to relax and have fun and be able to interact with everybody. But when it's time to go to work, he flips that switch and the focus comes in, and when it's time to work, he works, and then he's right back to let's go relax and have some fun and that sort of thing. And so his consistent approach every day, and his off-season training is in really good shape. I think all of our guys are. I think that's really important for the specialist position of how they keep their bodies and how they come in shape, and it just prolongs their career because it helps keep them healthier.
I don't think we talk about kickers in terms of development the way we do with other positions, but is just being a third-year player at that position just valuable, just as you kind of go through this process?
It definitely is. Look, I think the third year probably is when it all comes together, right? Your rookie year, you don't know what you don't know yet, and by saying you don't know the routine of how an NFL season works and how long it is and what the practice schedule and the requirements are and that sort of thing. And then you get to your sophomore year or your second year in the league, and it's like, okay, I made it through my rookie year. I kind of have an idea. Now I need to perfect my craft and I need to perfect my schedule. Everything down to the fact of, okay, not only these are my kicking days, but these are the certain days that I'm studying my own film, or I'm studying the opponent's kickers and punters and specialists, or here's when I'm getting my stretch or my yoga or my massage. I just think you kind of put that routine together, and then when you get to year 3, you kind of, all right, I got to figure it out now. I know exactly how and what I need to do for my body and for my mental preparation to be successful, and so I'm excited about where Blake is right now.
When you guys looked at Bayless Jones in the offseason, did you recognize that he was going to be a guy who could help in so many different areas?
I did. Look, I've liked him for a while. I remember when coming out of college, I like his return ability. I like his speed and his explosion, to be able to play in coverage units, to be able to return the ball in the kick return game. I think he's a matchup problem even when he's on the punt return team. He's able to do some things there, whether it's rush a punter, hold a guy up. So I'm excited about his physical traits, and he's another guy that he's just a great dude. Like, he really is. Like, he wants special teams is extremely important to him, and individual times at night, like texting me with a question from practice or stuff like that. Just and we have a bunch of guys that do that. That just shows their care and their commitment to special teams, that they want to make sure they're able to get it right, or how can I get better at it, or what more can I do? And he was one of those guys.
And then Jalen Ford obviously was a guy who was captain, Mike linebacker of one of the top teams in college football, but have you seen him be able to embrace special teams as much as the guys who come from walk-on backgrounds and things like that? And
Absolutely.
Special teams?
Yes, there's no doubt. And that's one of the challenges that happen with these guys that come out of college that were great college players that played positionally and really didn't play special teams. And it's not a mental thing or a want-to thing. It was actually the lack of physical reps of doing it, so it's learning new tasks. And at this league, you got to learn in a hurry. And so he improved throughout the year last year. Unfortunately, wound up getting hurt. But like, even in this off season, and he lived with the training room, and he worked his ass off every day to get back healthy and be ready to go. And part of his routine of training was his punt sets, was his take the line on kickoff. Like, he incorporated those things in to his linebacker drills and stuff like that, because he knew that's how important it was for us as a team to be successful, and for him to be able to be successful as well. So I'm excited.
Bayless claims he's the fastest guy in the team. Can you confirm it?
I can't confirm nor deny it. I don't know. I think we got a couple guys that are really, really fast, so I don't know who that is.
You had a chance to catch up with Riz on Saturday?
Yeah, we did, yes. It was good. We had a chance to catch up and talk, and there's a bunch of guys on that staff, obviously, that I know, and that's the neat thing about this league. There's, and even in the special teams coaches in general. I think throughout the NFL, there's special teams coaches are kind of unique, right? Like, we have some things that we do interact-wise, because we're always trying to change the game and stay ahead of it and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different, like WebEx calls that we're on and stuff like that. And so you start building relationships with those guys, but then you go and you play them on Sunday, and it's like, your sibling, your brother. If you played them in a sport or something like that, you want to take their head off, you want to beat them, and then afterwards you hug them, you love them, and you move on, So it's a pretty neat deal. All good? Thanks, guys.
All good.
So obviously a really tough day. You've been through this on the defensive coordinator side as well as the head coach side. Can you just kind of walk us through a little bit about what a day like today is like for you?
Yeah, a tough day, but also can be a really good day to connect with people that have given a lot to you. So a day like this can be the beginning of something really special for a lot of guys. So there's a lot of work that everybody put in from the first day of phase 1 to now. So it's a great opportunity to thank people for everything they've given to the team. It's also a great opportunity for you to share with a player where he needs to go with his game. It's a tough day, but it also can be one of those special days that can lead a player to a special path.
What went into the decision, just with Foskey, second pick here, what went into that decision?
I think that's a better question for Kellen and Mickey. I think that Isaiah did a really good job for us when he was here. Played really hard. He's an extremely hard worker, and again, there's a lot of football in front of him.
We obviously don't know all the final roster decisions, but if you can just speak about their performance, we'll find out later. Isaiah Foskey and Jalen Ford both started getting more and more opportunities, it felt like, in recent weeks. They came in with the twos the other day. What did you like, or Isaiah Stallbert and Jalen Ford, what did you like about each of those young linebackers? It was a very crowded group this summer.
I think both of those guys, from, I would say, the end of the springtime to the other night, just made a lot of consistent improvement. And I think that when Jalen got back on the field at the end of the springtime, I think we were able to see someone who had been paying attention, and that's not easy when you're not getting reps. And so I think that he was able to really apply all those lessons on the field right away, which gave a good early sign for him. And then I think with their opportunities in the training camp, they just consistently improved throughout the whole camp. And I think demonstrated the aptitude both from a football intelligence standpoint, running the show and being a pro linebacker, and then having the physicality and toughness, and then the playmaking. You know, I think there was playmaking that was consistent for both of those guys, both on defense and on special teams. And we kind of feel like those guys are the right guys to be coaching.
What stood out to you about Rajon Wright and the opportunities that you got to see in this offseason?
Yeah, I think Rajon is a great example of a guy who continued to improve throughout the course of spring and summer. I think he kept coming the whole way, really improved fundamentally his understanding of the defense and the system. And then I thought, you know, those last two preseason games, I thought that he put a lot of quality downs on tape. I thought in the last game in particular, he tackled extremely well in the game. And then, as you guys know, in the Jacksonville game, you make a big-time play like that at the end of the game, people are going to remember that. But I think that play, I think, was a really good indication of his entire training camp, where he was contesting the entire way. And he's a guy that we felt like was an improving player, and just happy for him.
Brandon, it's not too often you get to coach a guy who's been 15 years in one place. I know this is your first year here with Cam, but just from a coaching perspective, what's that like, knowing that a guy's been here? I mean, the roster's changed, the front office has changed, the coaching staff is changing. He's just kind of this constant here.
Yeah, I don't think you can underestimate it. Me having a better understanding of how the NFL is, 15 years in one place is about as rare of accomplishment as anybody, and that's for a player, a coach, an executive. And anytime you're with one team that long, it shows how special you are. You have special ability for sure, but I think Cam has got special intangibles, and his love for the game and his commitment to the game, that's the reason why you last and play as well as long as he has. And that's what stands out to me. Everyone knows, I think, is aware of, he's got this amazing way about him, you know, and I think that I've been able to see that firsthand. But, you know, I was coaching outside rushers when I first got in the league, and, you know, we would always watch Cam Jordan, you know, and I think that he was always been one of the most complete players at that position, because he can do so much well, you know, in the run game, pass rush, pass coverage. And now being with him here, what a great mentor he's been for these young guys on our whole team. You know, it's been an honor to team up with him. You know, I know that I've learned a lot from him in a short amount of time. And again, I think he's a guy that's a good example for these young players. Every time he got a chance in training camp to go out there and compete, he did it at a high level. He never was entitled to anything. He always plays every down like it's his last down. And that's such a great example for all of our young players to see what it should look like on a day-to-day basis. So excited about his progress. I think he's improving. And as we know, when it gets real here in a couple weeks, he'll be ready.
And just for your scheme in particular, is it important for you to have a guy like Justin Reed, just from a mental processing level back there? Like, he seems obviously very intelligent. He's obviously got the Stanford degree and everything, but like just like having a very smart player at safety, is that kind of important for what you do?
I think all the defenses would tell you that they would love a guy like Justin. I know Steve Spagnuolo and Andy would tell you he was a big factor in their success, and he'll be the same for us. I think much like Cam, just the example that they set professionally is as important as anything. But then the productivity and the playmaking, the consistency of it. You know, he's a multiplier, and when you get a safety that can, you know, do the things that Justin can do, it enhances everybody's ability on your defense. And he's one of those rare impact players as a safety, who doesn't have to just impact the game physically. He can impact the game mentally, and I think he's allowed us to play a lot of high-level football, you know, because of his experiences. And then when you put him in a tandem with Blackman, you know, that's going to really enhance your defense and the layers that you can play with.
How do they complement each other, Blackman and Reed?
Yeah, I think that's a really great point and observation. You know, Justin and Julian, I think are both pretty complete safeties, but I think their styles are complementary. Justin is a bigger safety. He really brings a physical presence going forward towards the line of scrimmage. And I think Julian's got a very good complementary way of going backwards and playing in the deep part of the field, playing in slot cover. But I think that they both can play in the deep part of the field. I think they're both outstanding open field tacklers. They both have position flex. Justin played dime money for Steve, and Julian's played star. So they give you that versatility, and you don't feel like you have to play them exactly this way. They're both pretty complete players. And then when you factor in their football IQ, it's been really cool to team up with those guys, and they've been a great example for our guys.
How important is it to your scheme to have that kind of nose tackle and Devon who can, just either double team and stuff the run? Because it's just not a position that was really existing on this roster prior to this year.
Yeah, I think, you got to build your defense up the middle. And I think the way that we want to play, having a guy there like Devon allows everybody to play better. And I think the command that he has in the middle of, not only being able to, I think control double teams, but if he does get a single block, when he gets a single block, he's winning that single block and making the tackle. And so he's not just a space occupier. We feel like he can make a lot of tackles for us, and that's important, that he's going to give you playmaking, run stuffs in there. And so just a very consistent player. And I think having to face him all these years, that's what really stood out to me, is just how consistent he was. Bill and Steve and those guys in New England, they have as high a praise for him as anybody, So I think he's brought that professionalism to us, but again, the playmaking ability and the ability for others to benefit by how he plays in the middle.
Brandon, what was your exposure like to Ike got him last year? And a number of guys here have said he's been like somebody they've leaned on in the room because he's really the only one with a ton of experience.
Right. Ike's got an awesome path. I was with him in Denver in 2019. That was his second year in the NFL. And to see him kind of go on this path, I've brought it up in some defensive meetings of where kind of Ike started in his NFL career and now where he is. And I think last year, being with him in San Fran, he played really well for us last year in San Fran. I mean, a very consistent player throughout the season. And then for us to be able to join up with him here and him having a prior experience here with Mickey and this group of guys here, it really was a natural fit. And so he's just, again, a professional, a guy that's extremely consistent. But I think a really good example for young guys is he's taken a path that's less traveled. But he hung in there and he kept getting better. And I show him Ike when he was in 2019 when I was with him, and I show him the Ike now in 2025 and where he is committed to taking his game. And he's been, I think, a real consistent performer for us throughout training camp and an awesome example for our guys. And just, whether it's tackling in the run game, the way he sets the force, the way he covers, the way he is as a gunner on punt team, year 7 or 8 or whatever it is for him, just been a great example for our program.
What's the biggest thing that jumps out between 2019 and 2025?
Confidence. And most of that comes with a lot of experience. But he's had to earn that confidence, because when you have to, take the road less traveled and you go play for a bunch of teams, you got to believe in yourself more than anyone else. So I think it just shows you the type of competitor that he is and how much it means to him. But to be playing like he is now just shows you that, there's a lot possible if you'll just hang in there. But he's got a lot of confidence right now, and just all the experiences that he's been able to acquire over the years, he's using all that and he's applying it on the field.
Is he somebody that you would describe as kind of like a technically sound corner? Like, there's a lot of people that rely a lot on physical ability and all those other things. Obviously he has that, but is he more of a technical guy?
Yeah, he's very committed to his approach, and I would say very consistent in his routine. And I think that was one of the things that's allowed him to play well, is he understands who he is. He's a really good press player, very committed to his technique. And then I think what he's been able to do is been able to improve in his cushion race when he's playing off. He's been able to improve that aspect of his game. He's always been a great open field tackler. He's been an outstanding gunner in the league for many years. So he really brings that to your defense as the tackling because of his arm length and because of his physicality. But as a cover guy, I think he's just very committed to that routine. And I think that's been a good example for our young guys is, hey, if you can, especially at corner, if you can become a technician, there's going to be a place for you in this league.
I asked you about your relationship with Kellen before, but I'm curious on a day like today where he's in a bit of a different role where now he's the head coach. Like, have you noticed him change, if at all, with a day like today in terms of giving his preferences and all that?
Kellen's so consistent. I think that's one of his top traits is his poise and his composure. I just see him every single day get more confidence because the more you do it, the more experiences you go through, the more certain that you become of yourself. But I think what he's done an excellent job is surrounding himself with the right people. And we're fortunate here that, with our front office experience, I think we have like 4 former GMs on our staff, and so it's like there's a lot of experience here. And then, myself, Scott Linehan, Doug, Phil, Joel Thomas, people that he knows, that he trusts. I think that makes the job a lot easier on a day like today. So I think he's done an outstanding job of surrounding himself with the right people.
And when you're a coach for the first time and you're trying to blend different parts of your coaching path and bringing it to a new place, are there things you recognize from your guys' time in LA that you brought here, and so what are?
Yeah, of course, we're a blend of our experiences. I know that when Kellen and I teamed up together in LA, we wanted to incorporate a lot of things that had made him successful in Dallas, and even when he was playing as a player in the NFL or in college, for Chris. So I think that's a big part of leadership is trying to incorporate the things that you feel like are going to work for you, and I think that he's done a good job of that. I think him going to Philly after LA, certainly having the year that they did, but it's not even just the success. It's another experience, another process, another way of doing things, and then you come into this place and you see what's going to fit. And I think that's something that he does a great job of is what's going to fit for us right now, and what's going to fit for him and his style of leadership.
How much do you dedicate Wednesday and Thursday this week to kind of taking your system and refining and adjusting based on the changes in the roster?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that these 2 days are important because we don't play Arizona until next week. So you can get too far ahead worrying about them. You've got to find the right balance of studying us and then, obviously getting ready for the opponent. So we have an inventory of training camp that we can look at, whether it's practice, scrimmage, or these 3 games. And we need to make sure that we take care of ourselves first. And I think that Kellen's put together a really good practice schedule for the next couple of days where it's a good balance of focusing on us and then getting ready for our opponent. But that's what, the rest of this week we're going to be trying to strike that balance.
Yeah, we saw it with Bo a little bit, and obviously Kyler's the same way. How much time do you spend trying to factor in quarterbacks that are just going to extend forever? Is that something that you scheme for, or do you just have to kind of handle it within the defense?
Yeah, you got to scheme for it, for sure. That added element of the mobility is a big part of this league, and the best quarterbacks now, you can name one, they all have it. So all those big high leverage downs, third downs, red area, 2-minute, you're going to have to factor that into how you play. So no matter how you're going to rush the quarterback, 4, 5, 6, whatever, that's going to be a big component of the game plan. And so, Bo, that's a great exposure for our guys, getting ready for, our first game, but all the other games too that we're going to have to play where the quarterback's a special player with his legs. And, we had good exposure in games 2 and games 1 of the preseason as well with Trevor, and then, Trey Lance. He's a very mobile quarterback too. So that's the thing that you have to do during training camp now is you have to learn, until it's live, you don't really know. And Spencer and Tyler and Jake have given us great looks too. But that's such a big part of finishing plays in the NFL. So yeah, we're going to have to spend a lot of time on it with Kyler for sure.
Guys, we have time for one more question for Coach. If not, we have Coach Nussmeier pretty tight schedule. So anything to follow up with Brandon?
I know you were touching on Callum a little bit earlier. So far, in your 2 stints, what's been your favorite thing about working with him?
Oh, Just one thing. I think that Kellen, Catherine, just has a very refreshing poise when things get tough, and there's been some instances that we've had together where that, something big just happened, maybe not in a good way, but just the no flinch and like, hey, this is what we got to do next. This is what we got to pivot to, and we got to get moving. And I just think that he's got such a refreshing poise, and those type of scenarios. And it's been great to see him in this way. I saw him last year go to Philly, and they didn't get off to a great start last year. People forget that, but then, I think his poise showed up. Hey, this is what we got to do. This is how we need to play. This is how we need to attack the rest of the season. Bam. And I think he's done it here as a head coach. There's been a lot of examples, but I think he's very consistent. And in this league, you have to be, because there's always so much happening. And I think he sets a great example for all of us. I guess.
Take care.
Guys, how we doing? Good.
What is sort of your kind of evaluation of where things stand quarterback-wise? Not necessarily decision-wise, but just knowing you've got these two guys in your building.
Like I said before in the past, that the young guys, the learning curve steep right now. They've done a really good job of pushing each other, and I know everybody's in a hurry for a decision to be made, but that's a good thing when the decision is not made right away, because that means the two guys are competing very well. And so been really proud of the way they've worked together and worked to be the best player they can be, but also worked together knowing that there was a competition going on.
So what kind of went into the decision with Jake Haener and giving him the opportunity maybe to seek opportunities elsewhere?
It's a tough part of this business, and Jake's a really good player. And, sometimes when you get into situations with numbers and things like that and rosters, it's, as we know yesterday, today, it's very fluid in this league. There's a lot of stuff moving around and going on. And, Jake did a great job, had a great camp, had, unfortunately the injury in the offseason, but he did a really nice job for us.
After the game, Kellen kind of talked about, you guys have talked about it internally with all the coaches when it comes to making the decision on starting quarterback. How tough has it been with the back and forth trying to make this important decision for the team?
Well, obviously, anytime you make key decisions like this, there needs to be a lot of thought put into it. So, obviously, you spend, in my chair a lot of time, going back and forth, rewatching things. And I'll say this, both players have been very resilient. They've had great days. They've had not so great days. They've bounced back, and just when you think maybe somebody's about to separate, the other guy, bounces right back and makes some great plays. So it's been a fun competition to watch.
And obviously, the NFL, you're kind of constantly adding players, league players, everything like that to your roster. But a guy like Bailey coming in, maybe playing a key role for y'all right away. We haven't even seen him practice us. So, what is the challenge of incorporating somebody like that into maybe a major role when you only got a week and a half?
Well, it's a great question, because it obviously is a challenge, and to think that somebody can come in right away and you can give them the whole offense and they can just take off, that's not happening in this league. There's so much that goes on in the adjustments to routes and those type of things when you talk about the receiver position, our blocking schemes, the intricacies with that. And so, what you do is you start with the menu, you build the menu that you want to know that he knows, and then you grow from there.
Just going back to the Jake decision or the Jake situation for a moment, was that a decision that was made just from organization knowing that you're dealing with roster numbers and everything, or was there an interest from Jake to say, I'd like to see what else is out there?
I'm not going to go really into the specifics, how we may come to the decisions and those type of things. It's like I said, it's tough. You get to this time of year, it's really tough.
What strikes you about Spencer's confidence?
He's got a great amount of confidence. He's got some swag to him, as does Tyler. So, he's got really good natural instincts. And, you're talking about a guy that, since he was young, was a highly, highly recruited guy coming out of high school, went to Oklahoma, played on one of the biggest stages in college football, obviously has a transfer. And so this guy's been in the spotlight for a long time. So he's used to carrying himself a certain way.
Do you think that helps him bounce back after having tough days, every once in a while?
I think both of our guys have had that, have had their share of adversity. And I think, anybody that's played that position for an extended period of time goes through adversity and learns to deal with the challenges and the successes. We talk all the time about staying in the middle. Don't get too high, don't get too low, continue to grow and get better each and every day.
And with him too, you mentioned him being so highly recruited, I know that was a long time ago, but even when you're on this level, can you kind of see the reason why, the arm talent or whatever it is,
Yeah, I think if you look at, some people in their analytics department actually go back to high school evaluations and how many stars a guy has when he's come out in the draft to evaluate, the success rate of quarterbacks going from a highly rated high school player, prep player, to the NFL. So there's some statistical evidence of those type of things that people look at. And but like I said, a high-profile guy ever since he was a young kid.
Do you find value in that?
I think you can justify a little bit of the merit of it. And usually when you see a kid that is going to play in the NFL in a game on Friday nights, he kind of stands out a little bit. Now, there's a lot of players that haven't developed yet, too. And as we all know, there's players that are fully developed that age that you think maybe, hey, this player is going to be a phenomenal college player and a phenomenal pro, and then maybe the growth stops and everything just kind of shuts off, and then they don't have the type of career that everybody anticipated. But there's also cases of guys that really stand out at that level, and you go okay, I can see why that's an NFL player.
Coach, we got time for one more. Did you think the competition would be this close and last this long when you were working with those guys early on? So what it's kind of gone?
I don't know that. I didn't really have an expectation for what way the competition would go. And you find out a lot about people when you do get in these situations, because it would have been easy if somebody, we've had days where one guy's had a great day and maybe another guy didn't have a great day, and you're like, okay, well, is he going to let him run away with it? Is he going to go in his shell and disappear now? That hasn't been the case. Like I said, both players have been very resilient. They've competed. They've been awesome. Obviously, it's a tough decision for us. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.